So I think we will jump in and begin, knowing that John Bryan will be with us within a few minutes, I'm sure. And almost all of you probably know him, and I think we don't need to fear that his voice won't be heard once he enters the situation. I think we're going to be fine. Yeah. So I hope that everybody remembers, and that you know which of us is which, but just because the screen is labeled Kathy, I'm Ellen and I count too. I really do. It is very good to see you all. We are thrilled to be involved in the class with you. And one of the first things that we would like you to do, I know that you all mostly know each other, but you are across buildings, and perhaps somebody's teaching assignment has changed this year over previously. So when you introduce yourselves, indicate where you're based and what your teaching assignment is. But the more important thing in introducing yourselves is just to share with us and each other why did you sign up for the course? And it's okay if one of the reasons is that you need some credit, but I'm guessing there may be more to the story. So what are you hoping to get out of this, so that it gives us a little bit of guidance in where we target our efforts? So I'm just going to call on folks the way that we're seeing you. I'm going to go clockwise the way you are on our screen. So Irene, go ahead.
Okay, Irene Stazak. I'm up at the high school, and right now I'm teaching statistics. That's new for this semester. Actually, it's new. Last year I taught it once, and then before that I hadn't taught it before. So first semester I taught Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. Now I'm teaching stats, and with the hybrid schedule and the remote and everything, like I pretty much feel like a brand new teacher again. I'm sure you guys can all feel the same way.
Sure.
So for this class, honestly, hi John. So yeah, for this class, I was just so looking forward to something that wasn't just about technology. I feel like we've been inundated with that, which is important because we're trying to figure this all out. But just honestly, the word irresistible, I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Okay, well, I do need credits, and that sounds fun. So plus, you guys are doing it, so that makes it better.
Well, you're very sweet. We appreciate that. That's great. Welcome, John. Good to see you. Mallory, go ahead.
I'm Mallory Reiber. I teach 3rd grade here in Tallmadge. Used to teach 4th grade, love 3rd. Had Arlene's daughter a couple years ago. But I joined because, yes, I do need the hours, but it was so fun to get started with Kathy and Ellen last year when they came in for a meeting. I was on maternity leave the year that Tallmadge kind of brought in the PBL and got it all rolling. So I'd just like to learn more and really implement it here in the classroom. And it is helpful when it's people from your district, because they know what you're going through. They know what the community's like, what you can and can't do, like feasibly. I feel like when you're with people all across Ohio or the nation, it's just like, yeah, they throw this cool idea out, but you might not be able to implement it.
Good, good. Sarah.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I teach 2nd grade at Tallmadge Elementary School. I'm team teaching with Debbie. Well, we are-ish. But I took this class because John, Kathy, Ellen, and I just hang out all the time. No, I'm on the K-12 planning committee, and when I became a teacher, this is the philosophy that I loved and started with, and I'm super excited to learn more and implement all kinds of PBL projects and different sorts of learning in my classroom, and drag Debbie along.
That's cool. We were so glad when we saw your name, and then when John added today, because this will give you guys a chance, if you want to further your work on the idea of the outdoor learning piece. Well, you could easily do that as the project for the course. So yeah, that's exciting. So Debbie, is anything Sarah said true?
Yes, it's all true, except she's not dragging me along. I joyfully come along with her. I love teaching with her, and I've always loved project kind of activities since I ever started here in Tallmadge 20 some years ago. And as everyone else has said, really when it has your names attached to it, I absolutely want to come to it, because regardless of what the topic is, because you guys make everything so engaging and so meaningful. And you let us be creative, encourage us to be creative. And I feel like sometimes that gets squandered a little bit because of testing and all that. So it makes me happy to teach and come up with ideas when I work with you guys and get feedback and information from you.
So we truly appreciate what you said. And I'm so happy I recorded this. I'm going to send it to my kids.
So I'm going to ask Julie to chime in there from the nosebleed section.
I would have to ditto everything that Debbie said. Just like I need credits, but knowing that I'm going to do something that's valuable and knowing the presenters and what you've brought to us already this year, and just kind of thinking about what that might look like this year as we're 6 feet apart and how we can still work together and that kind of thing. I'm excited for those kinds of ideas. And then when I have, I'm second grade as well as Sarah and Debbie, and just being able to plan together and think of ideas and things that we can do to encourage our kids in project-based learning. We're excited to do that.
Well, good. You're the ultimate role model there for 6 feet apart. I love it. Just a little reminder for us.
Well, I think too, with 3 of us from second grade here, our second grade team, we are super tight with each other in the building and in our personal lives. So I think even though that all of us aren't able to be part of this program or this course, we all will benefit as a grade level from this, because we do our planning together across everything that we do, and we share ideas. And so that piece too is huge for us.
Great.
That's great.
Great. Ms. Brooke.
I'm Brooke Nagy. I'm kindergarten here at Tallmadge Elementary. And I could just say ditto to what Debbie said and Mallory said, and so many people have said. I've loved everything that we've done as far as PD with the 2 of you. So when this came up, it was a no-brainer. So credit, and with the 2 of you, it was just a bonus.
Good.
Love the PBL stuff that we've done already. I think like the question I always go back to is making it appropriate for our youngest learners, being a kindergarten teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that Joanne's on here too, who's also a kindergarten teacher with me, because we do a lot of things, we'll plan and talk through things together too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will be good. Plus I love the idea, and John and I have talked about this before, and I know Sarah too, like doing things across grade levels.
Sure.
Too, collaborating.
Yeah.
Right? So
Good. That would be very exciting, and your setting is so made for that. It should make it easier, definitely. Well, we're going next to the 2 mats, and let's not break this cycle of how wonderful it is to be with us. So, Matt Hagedorn first.
I'm Matt Hagedorn. I teach health at the middle school. In a non-COVID year, I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade health, and this year I got the opportunity to teach 5th grade health for the first time in my career, which has been fun, interesting, exciting, all those together in one. But it's been a crazy year for sure. I've spent a lot of time teaching from home. I'm currently quarantined right now. My daughter tested positive, and it's just been crazy, especially since we literally go nowhere. She goes to the babysitters, babysitters in school and here, and that's it. And it's been really tough. And so this is my little station that I've made, because my wife, my 2 daughters, and myself are all home right now. So I'm sequestered to our room. Girls are down in the office and things like that. So it's definitely been a crazy thing. But the reason why I chose this one, well, if I got to be honest, that I'm a massive procrastinator, and I needed those credits. But it was refreshing to see you guys on there for real. Like, I've worked with you guys before, and it's just it was nice to also kind of just piggyback on what other people are saying, just doing it with other Tallmadge people, and it's just a very comfortable atmosphere, I think.
Well, good.
Great.
And better late than never.
How's your daughter doing?
She's fine. She had one day last Sunday, where it was a weird sickness. She's 5 and she's never had a headache before. And she said she just couldn't even really describe what was happening. Like, just, it was pretty bad for one day. But after that, next day she was fine. But the rough thing for us is she has a 10-day isolation period after she has her last symptoms. Then when that's up is when we start our 14-day quarantine.
Wow.
Because we have to be with her. So I'm out till February 10th.
Gosh.
So I'm getting real comfortable in this chair that I've set up in my room.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll keep thinking good thoughts, and hopefully it will be smooth sailing from here.
Yeah, well, it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
All right. Matt Morrissey.
Okay, it's nice to see all of you. I'm Matt Morrissey. I've been at the middle school this is my 10th year. Prior to that, I was at the high school. And I've done 7th grade most of the time, but I'm doing 6th grade now. In fact, this is brand new to me, this classroom, and the lights are out. I just saw somebody else get up and move. I'm not used to my surroundings, so if something weird happens, don't be surprised. But I think I joined this so comfortably. I do need the hours.
Don't apologize. That's fine. We're glad to help.
But honestly, when I've worked with you in the past and you've asked your questions, I feel like after a fairly long career that it's the deepest thinking that I've done. And you care about kids and we care about kids, and it's always good to work with other people that care about the kids truly. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Let us see. Joyanne, we haven't heard from you yet.
See if I can turn my microphone on. I'm Joyanne Green. I teach kindergarten with Brooke, and pretty much ditto what everyone else said. And especially Brooke, you nailed it. But really, Kathy and Ellen, I enjoy spending time with you. So that was a big reason why I wanted to sign up.
It makes me wish we were up in Tallmadge and we could go out for happy hour together after this, or dinner and a pizza.
It makes me pray that we remain likable. So
that's right. It's a lot of pressure.
God. John.
Hey, well, no one knows me. I'm new to the district. But no, but I think the biggest thing for me, I don't need the credit hours because I'm on the old permanent certificate. But so no ippy dippy for me, people. But for me, it's about doing right by the kids. That's the number one thing. And these times are so tough. I was watching the videos to get caught up, and I'm like, oh, the kids are hugging each other and they're like so close. And I'm like, but we're going to get there again. I totally get that. But I want to do right by my kids. And it's funny, to follow our journey with you, Ellen and Kathy, that first class, we're all like, yeah, let's go back. We're going to have fundraisers. We're going to get stuff done. And then you came back and like, oh, I don't think we were supposed to do that. It's fun to see that progression. We got 20 fundraisers going on. It was driving us crazy. And then when we followed up, we're like, I don't think we're supposed to. It's a little bit more than that. So then that realization, and then year 2, it started, snowballing. And so it's fun to see the progression, because I'm also on the K-12 planning committee with the service learning, and, to see how far we're going. And, this is kindness week. And I'm like, my kids are like, oh, let's do this, let's do that. And, we really have to reel them in. We can't bake stuff. We can't do this. We can't, it's to show gratitude this week. So I'm here. I want to come up with some great ideas for how we can do this in this time right now.
Yes, great. You know, it's so refreshing to hear you talk and wonderful to see you again. And I think one of the things that we want to do in response to what you've said is to make sure that by the end of the time we're together for this course, that everybody feels like they have made progress in some way and that you have come up with ideas that you're excited about and that are realistic. While we say that, we also want to take pressure off of your shoulders, and we want to reassure you that even though you'll be working on a plan for a project as a part of the course, and you'll be working with a template that we think is really user friendly. It was so helpful to people last summer, and they came up with such great things. But we, as far as we are concerned, those plans don't have to be finalized when the class sessions are done. In other words, you can continue your work on those further into the spring and even into the summer if you need to. The only thing that has to happen is that if you're doing this for Ashland credit, then before Kathy validates your Ashland credit, you need to have logged enough hours both during Zoom and also outside of Zoom. But it doesn't at all mean that you're under the gun to complete your project plan in an artificially quick manner. You need to let that evolve. It needs to grow for you organically with our help. And so we want you to feel like this process is useful to you, but it can also move along at the pace that you need it to move along in relation to your other responsibilities. So let's relax about that. You talked about wanting to develop plans that will work under the current learning conditions. And I think you can tell in the objectives for the course that that's exactly what we're hoping to do. We're going to acknowledge that sometime you might be in person, sometimes you might be remote, sometimes you might be hybrid, but it is really possible to come up with ideas that will work under all of those conditions. And so we'll help you think through that. And most importantly, what we learned last summer is that you'll help each other when you're in breakout rooms, when you're collaborating, when you're touching base outside of class time with each other. That will be as helpful to you as we are. And so just creating the time and space for that to happen is really, really important to us. Based on what you have said, I'm gonna change what you talk about in your first breakout room a little bit, and you'll be in groups of 3. Kathy will scatter you, and that'll mean that Debbie and her roommate need to be together with one other person, and then everybody else can be in trios. All right, so here are the things that we would like you to talk about this first time through. Think really about your mission as a teacher. What are the most important things to you to be doing with kids? What outcomes do you want for them? And what do you want teaching to be like for you? And then here's the question. You're going to talk to the other people in your group about those personal aspirations that you have. But then we would like you to make some connections to the examples that you looked at before the class began. So when you looked back at the Alzheimer's project, when you looked at the memory project, when you read about the traumatic brain injury project. And some of you may have done one of those, some of you may have done them all, some of you may have done 2, it doesn't matter. But what relationship do you see between the style and the outcomes of those projects and who you are and want to be as a teacher? What connections can you draw? And I'm going to throw one more curve at you, though I think it will be easy. How do you connect those things to what you see in the Tallmadge North Star and the directional system? You know, who you have decided to be as a district. which was shaped by other visioning work done a few years ago by all of you with us and with Emmy. Okay, so your mission as a teacher, what's really important to you, even thinking about some of your best days with kids, as we always encourage you to do, how that connects to the examples that you looked at, and how that connects to the Tallmadge directional system. We good? Back, everybody?
We're back.
All right, good. So what is one observation you'd like to make based on your conversation? Anybody jump in. What was that conversation like?
And you can unmute. We're a small enough group. Otherwise, we don't always get people talking.
Well, I missed my peeps and I was just like catching up. Like I work with Debbie and I've worked with them for years. So it's just nice getting caught up.
Yeah.
The big thing that we hit is like how much the world has narrowed for our kids now.
Mm-hmm.
That they're so limited in this worldview, it's very difficult with the COVID pandemic. So the goal of Service Spaces may be to open that back up.
Good. Okay. All right. What connections did you see in your mission and what your colleagues said, as well as some of the examples? How do some of those examples feed into some of the things you value?
Well, we talked about wanting the kids to have a passion for what they're learning and to see how they can impact other people. And like, I think back to that Alzheimer's video and that project, that really opened some of those kids' eyes, even though they were little,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and hey, even though my grandparents aren't old and deal with this, it's interesting to understand that other people are needing things and need, maybe they don't have grandkids. And so, you know, like that temporary grandkid to bring those things to the nursing home and such, and just how they can make a difference in someone else's life, even though they're just a kid, you know?
Great, thank you. Any observations from the other examples, either the memory project or the traumatic brain injury?
We didn't talk about it in our group much, but I liked the traumatic brain injury project with the way they started out just saying, imagine a world. They started with imagine a world statements. And I want to definitely try that in my class. I don't know where it'll go from there, but I want to figure out how to just put that out there and see what the kids come up with.
We will put, it's interesting you brought that up, Mallory, because when you were on maternity leave, part of the original training was to do that activity, the Imagine a World poem.
That'd be why I didn't do it, guys.
Yeah, right. So
that was fun.
we will make sure we put that in Google Classroom in time for next week's session. And so those of you that want to look back at that activity in case you want to use it, or if you have any questions about how to implement it in case you decide that down the road, we'll put that in. And that was one of several entry events that Pam used to find out what the kids were interested in. So that's a important thing to point out. Anybody else? What were some of the things that were most important in your discussion?
I was noticing as we were talking that throughout all of these topics, like our mission as a teacher, what we want for our students, all of the examples that we looked through, and then our, ending at the portrait of a graduate, a common thread for me is empathy.
Mm-hmm.
All through that. It is huge for us. We talked about in our group, just we want our kids to leave us feeling better about themselves than they did before.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I want them to be problem solvers. I think that is what, in every example, that empathy piece was brought out in those students, and then it will lead them to all of those other things. It's a huge line across the board for me.
Absolutely.
And this is such an interesting time because, you know, when we work with teachers, empathy is always at the top of the list. I mean, that's huge. And of course, we feel strongly that service learning is PBL, but it also includes the empathy part naturally. And I can't tell you how often, you know, when we're here all day and the TV's on, you hear people outside of education talking about empathy. You know, it could be the people who've gotten pulled into, you know, the everyday people who've gotten pulled into the riot the other day at the Capitol. And they were talking about how you get those people who really were your neighbors, you know, we're not talking about the crazy fringe, but people that just wouldn't have believed would be there, and how having some sort of empathy, working on something for somebody else other than thinking about their own problems. Everybody's talking about this right now. And this is with intentional experiences through service learning, it results in empathy. Kids have it as long as they're allowed to reveal it.
So, you know, what we would say to you based on your own thoughts and your own discussion then is to begin thinking about the most important things that you want to hold yourselves to as you design the project. So there are so many different potential topics that you and your kids could tackle. And as you sort out where you want to begin and what you want to prioritize, if empathy is important to you, then you want to select something that gives you an opportunity to work on that, especially strongly. And we're not saying that all 10 of you have to decide that's your top priority, but each of you or whatever team you might be working on to design something, continue to think deeply about what's most important to you. What can you get at effectively through this type of teaching that you've been wishing for, and make sure that the project design then supports that, and we'll help to make sure that that's true.
And I don't know if you can see, I've been putting some stuff in chat. And so what we're trying to do is, it not unlike when we've been with you before, when we did the best days activity, that we're trying to build a rubric of what people feel are most important. And these are the things that you're going to build in intentionally. When you talked about the Alzheimer's project, I'm sure Pam, you know, if you'd asked her, do you want the kids to have empathy? She would have said, sure, I do. But it isn't like she defined it for them, or, you know, here's how you show empathy. But when the high school kids went to the Alzheimer's facility to videotape the elementary kids, you could tell that the high school kids were uncomfortable to begin with. And the elementary kids went straight up and talked to it, because Pam had done a lot of intentional things that allowed them to demonstrate their empathy. But by the time they were done, the high school kids, by watching and learning from the elementary kids, were also, you know, much more comfortable in showing empathy between the little kids and the older adults.
And like Kathy said, that's because in Pam's project design, they knew where they were headed with the action, but ahead of the action, they backfilled the preparation so they were fully ready to be comfortable and to be effective. And that's really part of the intentionality of it. Okay, so we're going to reinforce all of this for you with another video that most of you have seen before, but we like it particularly before we revisit the planning model, because the pieces of the model are so clear in this. And so think about how the project begins with a couple of good entry events. Think about the curriculum connections and the preparation that the kids are doing. Think about what the intent of their action is. Listen to them reflect, and then view how they do demonstration and celebration. It really is a great illustration of all of that going on. And plus it's from Michigan, so I'm showing it again.
Can everybody see my screen?
After we watched the entry video of my brother-in-law, we had a discussion, who knows someone that has cancer?
My grandma had actually passed away from lung cancer, so it kind of like made the project really real.
I had a friend who just a year ago died from lymphoblastic leukemia, and I actually still do miss him.
We had people from the health profession come in. It wasn't these doctors talking down to students. They wanted to know about the project, and they wanted to help them discover anything that they needed to know.
It's hands-on, and it's a real situation. So they're able to look at real data, do real research about something that exists. It takes a different style than just doing textbook type learning. It was really being able to learn, research, and then also teach.
And I think that learning like this is a lot different from traditional learning because you have to find the information yourself, and that doesn't really mean have to find the page in the textbook.
In my opinion, for the first time, we learned how new tech worked because we retained information without realizing that we were retaining the information.
Listening to our kids talk about this project, there was a level of a depth of understanding that stood out for me. They learned for a purpose that was beyond the test. They learned biology because they knew that they had this cancer awareness night, and there was this level of real adult accountability.
There was one presentation on breast cancer. There was one on colon cancer. These are very delicate subjects to talk about. And as a freshman, for them to talk about the subject matter, I was highly impressed how professional they were.
We did not expect the health literacy that we saw when we came to the event that they had.
Instead of being influenced to learn to get a good grade on a test, we were more influenced to learn to make a difference in our community and to get them more aware on how to be healthy.
We do a great job at treating cancer. We do a great job right now of identifying cancer treating. We're still struggling with preventing it. And if we can actually, touch more people on this level in terms of their age and prevent those behaviors, those risk factors, we can change the outcomes.
I mean, kids being able to say that I did this work because I wanted to help my community. I think there's a level of learning there that can't be ignored.
And at the end of the day, the fantastic thing about this project is it's brought a product to the community to actually change people's lives.
It's grueling work. This is education. This is teaching kids biology through a real life activity, but staying true to the fact that we have to teach biology. Sarah Calloware blended those two worlds really well. She had a very engaging project that the kids were emotionally involved in creating this cancer awareness night. And at the same time, when you listen to our kids talk at that cancer awareness night, you knew that they knew a lot about biology.
Being able to connect the science behind it to the theme of cancer really made the kids want to learn about it. They wanted to know more. They asked questions that I never asked, that I had to look up because I didn't know. We learned together. It was pretty amazing.
Cells Gone Wild wasn't something that we took out of a textbook or out of a leaflet or a syllabus. It's something that we really co-developed with Meridian and the instructors here.
And one of the things that we're intentionally trying to have kids learn is how to collaborate. So they saw the project be developed and implemented in their classroom in a very collaborative environment. Whether the community, MyTech participated in bringing this together, the business partner, Mid-Michigan Health, and the school, and it all came together to create a lot of excitement, a tremendous learning environment for kids.
When you set the expectation high and you keep them engaged with, a realistic topic or an authentic audience, they rise to the occasion.
In traditional schooling, I feel like I wouldn't be as engaged because I feel like if we had this project in traditionally, we wouldn't have the connection that Mrs. Calloware made.
But he eventually passed away, which happened during the project, which was, it was awful. But I think it really drove them to finish strong in the project, and it gave them this real life connection to how, close cancer can affect someone in the community. And it just kind of brought out all of those raw and rare emotions that, you don't normally see in a classroom.
So before we discuss this, you'll notice this is in Google Classroom. And so anything we show or the handouts and so forth will always be in each session.
Okay, so as we talk about that, what might be helpful for you is to have this sheet handy, either where you can see it on your phone or computer screen, or you've got it in hard copy. And because of the amount of previous training that we've done with you all, we're not at this time feeling the need to walk through that in detail. But as you talk about what you saw that was positive in that video, then we'll tie that to different pieces of the model. So in viewing that project, what are some things that struck you as strengths of the project? Why did that work? Why was it powerful?
I think the emotional buy-in is always crucial and wonderful. It just takes it to a place that most traditional schooling doesn't go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how do you think she got them emotionally engaged? What were the strategies that she used that made that a sure thing?
Well, the person involved in that instance was a family member, was
Mhm.
something near and dear to them.
Okay, all right.
I'll do it.
So it was personal for sure. And she was honest with them about something that her family was experiencing. And I think that kids really appreciate it when teachers are authentic with them about what they're encountering, and certainly always doing that in an appropriate way. But understanding that and being so genuine, I think was important. And following that with a discussion about where that topic fit for the kids and giving them an opportunity to open up if they wanted to about people they had known, or how close that may have come for them as well. What else do you think helped make that a compelling project for the kids and the community?
I think they felt trusted, and it was important, and they felt important. They were the ones giving the information, and it wasn't somebody giving them the information, you know?
Yes, exactly. And so thinking about that preparation and planning phase of a project as an opportunity for student discovery and leadership is really important, because we are so accustomed to delivering the content in a more teacher-centered, streamlined fashion, and believing that if we've said it, if we've shown it, they got it. Sometimes true, often not. And yet, if they own what they discover, we can really build upon that and maximize the value. And so now, that said, when you think about how those displays were set up, they clearly had agreed upon the format and the rubric for the work that they were doing. So it's not like kids were left 100% to their own devices about the parameters of the work. There definitely were some guidelines that were adhered to.
Every time I see this video though, and as Ellen said, you know, when we talk about assessment and so forth, you can definitely assess this project, the work that they did, the biology they knew, the product that they ended up with. But every time I see that one, it's like a little video embedded in it where the cell is dividing. I want to know how to do that. And so some kid that maybe never thought of themselves as a scientist could bring that technology expertise or artistic, creative thing to really impact the project. So on the one hand, there was certainly a rubric and a design that they were trying to end up with, but it also provided for creativity where kids could express their knowledge in different ways.
Oh, for sure. And I'm guessing that the kid that created that moving display with the cell division, probably was very good at playing with his straw as a kid. When you know how we used to turn them into worms while
Pipe cleaners.
Yeah. What else did you observe from the video that you felt was a positive characteristic or quality?
I wrote down, oh, sorry, somebody else.
Go, Mallory.
Adult accountability. They were treating them not like kids, not like freshmen in high school.
Which then takes you back to why we call this work all about letting kids become experts and change makers. But they can't be really effective change makers without being experts also. You know, it's not enough to do the action. You have to fully understand why you're doing it, the impact you're trying to make, and becoming very well-versed in the topic at hand. But yeah, they really are treated as adults in that process.
And I think you make such a good point about that adult responsibility, that, you know, how many times do we have to like beg kids to have their work turned in on time? And, you know, we think about, well, they're not responsible. How do we make them responsible? And if they don't have responsibility that matters beyond a test score or a grade, you know, if they didn't have that ready for the demonstration night or for their community partner, that's a different consequence. And, you know, me saying, okay, it's Friday, it's due, you can hand it in on Monday and I'll take 10 points off.
Yeah. What else made it successful? Somebody else was on the verge of a comment before.
John?
Hey, well, going back to, I think ownership is one of them, by allowing them to have that discussion, the kids all on the table, that they were able to get that buy-in from the kids. So that's an important step. But then I think the other thing is it's the role of the teacher to slow the kids down when you need to. Because, you know, in 5th grade, I get that a lot. Let's skip to this, and then your quality plummets. It's not fly by the seat of your pants, service-based or PBL. So then, and that comes, I think the hard part is knowing what, as a teacher, what do you need to plan your kids to do next to get to the next point? Because you want expertise, you don't want crap.
Right.
So, and I think that applies to any age.
Yeah, I think so too. I do.
And there's, you know, I think one thing builds on the other. Reen, you were talking before about the kids found knowledge. You know, they weren't just given knowledge. And so, John, when you talked, or I think it was John that said about the ownership piece, when kids own something and there's a need to know, if there's a need to know, that means they're curious. And if they're curious, they're not a passive learner. And that's what we're, you know, it's how do you set up those, you know, if we're scientists, how do you set up those, what do you call it in science, that conditions where kids do feel ownership, they're curious, and so they're active learners. And if they're active learners, they're probably not going to forget it after the test.
The emphasis on reflection in that video is something that I want to point out too. And thinking also about the importance of reflecting throughout the whole project journey. You know, even though on our model, when you look at it, it looks like it's step 4, and that's exactly when it happens. It really happens consistently, so that you're always getting feedback about how kids are feeling as this evolves, and they're deriving meaning consistently. So her discussion with them at the beginning about their personal experiences with cancer is certainly a reflective opportunity. When they were working on their products and displays, they were doing revision and giving each other feedback throughout that, so that the quality of the work ultimately was really, really excellent. And at the end, they're able to articulate how they felt about this style of learning, what impact they felt they had, and so forth. So the teacher was very, very adept at reflection, certainly as well. When you look at the model, is there anything else that you see in the model that you want to comment on related to that example, related to that project?
I was just going to mention reflection, and then you just did, but I just also want to say there's a huge shift in learning when you're able to, when we talk about that metacognition, the thinking about thinking,
yeah,
and that the end piece, when they say, I would not have been engaged if it wasn't like this, that is them realizing who they are as a learner and able to move forward as a human being, being able to solve other problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that was a great observation. You put that really, really well. Anything else that you see that you'd like to point out, folks?
And in a future session, you know, anything you want to share about that, the metacognition, because it's not something, we don't talk about it from that level, you know, that direction, but it's all embedded in here. And so, you know, knowing that and being intentional about it, you know what the rewards are. And so I think about, you know, this is a high school project, and it's easy to go, oh, you know, high school kids, sure, we could do that in science class. We could jazz up the traditional science fair and really make it something important that kids are intrinsically, you know, feel productive. But if you look at our, you may have read in the past, one of our model projects, Beat Michigan, Beat Cancer.
You just had to say that, didn't you?
Yeah, I know, I do love to say it. This rolls off the tongue. Those kids were fourth graders. In fact, it started when they were third grade. And their level of understanding of ovarian cancer and research and treatments and causes, it was every bit the level that these high school kids were doing. And so I think that's another thing that we often see, is that kids achieve at a higher level than we even think possible.
I want to make two other observations, and then we'll move on from there. One is that when you look at the model under the action block and you see the different categories of service learning, and it reinforces that we're mostly not about fundraising. Occasionally, when we might be about philanthropy and fundraising as a byproduct, but most of the examples that we share with you, and for the most part, the things that we encourage you to think about, fall into those other categories. And so having just watched Cells Gone Wild, that is very much an education and awareness project, you know, not a fundraiser. It's a community education piece. And so it is easy to move away from the philanthropy and fundraising piece if that's where you want to head. The other thing that I want to note is that that project is probably as successful as it is largely also because of the investment and the ownership of the community partners that they were working with. As those folks help get the public interested in the ultimate event that they co-sponsored, and they provided a lot of the professional expertise. So early on in your thinking, as you're developing your ideas, we want to help you be able to think about who you might want to work with that's in the community, if that is appropriate to your topic, because that's a really important piece. And a couple of you that are on the K-12 Planning Committee are aware of this, but on February 5th, we are helping to facilitate a Zoom call with a pretty big group of community agency and organization representatives from your area to help them understand service learning a little better and to engage their interest in partnering on some projects. And so that will open up some new possibilities for the teaching staff, I think. Plus, we can also help guide you in approaching other organizations that you might want to connect with. But thinking about the community partner piece would be the other thing. Anything else you need to know before we move on from there? All righty. So this is a good point for Kathy to talk a little bit about the Google Classroom setup and the planning template that you'll be working with, and some examples from last summer that you can look at to see what a completed template looks like, so that you get your arms around the actual work of the course.
Okay. Let me get back at, so you've all been able to get into the Google Classroom, or you will. So you will find that we've grouped things by additional videos and articles, which we don't have anything in there yet, but if something comes up that we think would be of interest to you or helpful in some way, we'll post those there. Assignments are basically like your participant contact information form, which is not as crucial for you guys because you all know each other, but we will put your participant log is here. So if you're taking it for credit, any time at all that you spend on this course, both in the Zoom sessions, preparing for it, filling out your log, filling out exit tickets, just list it. And for Ashland credit, you need a minimum of 25 hours there. But for CEU, you know, theoretically, you might do less than 25, you might do 30. For CEUs, I can give you whatever hours you put on your participant log. The project planning template was new this summer, and we've fooled around with different models in the past that we've used, and we are very pleased with this one based on the work that the teachers did this past summer. And we'll include, I'll show you where some samples will be so that you can see what they did. But the difference here is that it really allows you to connect curriculum standards wherever it's appropriate, whether it's an investigation and inquiry, whether it's in planning and preparation, whether it's in the action piece. And we've never had a template that allowed you to pull it out that way. And so we probably got the best articulated curriculum connections in the projects that were done this past summer. If you're taking this for Ashland credit, if you haven't looked yet, the directions are here, and it will just tell you to log in. There's a link, you log in to Tallmadge, it has the username and password, and you'll see this course when you get in there. So if you have any problems at all, this is the person you want to talk to, Courtney Kessler at Ashland. I mean, you can ask me too, I might be able to help, but, and there is a deadline on here, which I've never had, they've never closed the registration before, but now that they're doing everything online. So technically it closes February 11th. If you decide March 1st, you wanted to take this for credit, I'm sure that they will take your money. So, but if you can get it in before the 11th, that's probably better. Each time you'll have an exit ticket with just a couple of questions that we'd like you to do, like at least before the Monday after class, just so it's, Ellen might want to say something, but it's just a reflection piece that we kind of can gauge where you guys are and what you need.
Yeah, it's really that. It's a great way to keep in touch quickly. You don't need to write elaborately, but we just like to know what you're discerning from each session and whether you need help with anything. And In our other class groups, we've been arranging individual Zoom sessions when they needed a little coaching, if they wanted help brainstorming ideas or whatever.
Or a team.
You know, you just tell us when you want to get together online and we're happy to do that.
And you can count those hours.
Yep.
So in the class sessions, we will be putting session 2 up here in the next couple of days so that you can get ready for that as well. But anything we talked about or used will be included in each session. Course resources as those become appropriate. And down here on the service, oh, I haven't put them on here yet. There are a lot of projects here that a colleague of ours, friend of ours, teaches at the University of New Mexico, and they use generally our format. Oh, okay, it's not connected, so I will do that. But if you're interested in those, I will put some of those up. But we will have the sample projects from the summer, and we can also send you a link so you could see them all if you're interested. They're terrific and really well done. Any questions about this? I in the past, I've tried to always like email you with your Gmail account, and then I'd have people who didn't look at their Gmail for 3 weeks. So I'll probably still email you when I need to with your Tallmadge email. One other thing before we leave the Google Classroom is, I think this, we both would feel this way. If you need other hours or you're just interested in, we talked about the film festival that we're doing now here. We've had one session, but we recorded it, and it's designed so you can come once or you can come to all 6 and participate. I'll send you the registration form if you're interested. You know, it may be, there's not work really associated with this other than maybe watching there's going to be sometimes that we show a video or make it available before the class session so that we have more time to discuss it. But also many of the sessions, we embed it in the session and then discuss it. So especially for CEU credit, it might be of interest and an easy thing to do, but no pressure. Don't feel like you need to, but if you do need hours or you see some sessions that are of interest to you, I'll send that registration form so you can see what each topic is.
It's very possible that we will offer it to Tallmadge specifically in the future, but if you want to hop on board currently with the group we have going now, that would be great as well. Can we stop sharing for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so one of the things that will appear in your homework for next week, Kathy will make sure that the examples from last summer's group are included in your resources. We're going to ask you to pick one of the 3 that she provides and take a look at what people, pick at least one of them. You don't have to be limited to that, but take it at least one. And make sure that you're comfortable with how people utilize the template. And one of the things that you'll notice is that the template helps gather lots of possibilities. So when people were identifying entry events, they identified a bunch. They didn't necessarily pick which ones they were going to use yet. But it's just a way to get you accustomed to gathering as many possibilities as possible in each part of the planning model. And it's good for you to look at it early on so that if you've got questions about how this fits together, we can address them. Also, remember that this is a Word document that you can edit all the time. And Kathy's going to give you other brainstorming tools that you can use if you prefer them. But our intent is not that you pick up the template and you work with it in exact order. So if you think of possible action items before you think of all the preparation and planning, that's probably as it should be. You're thinking about possible actions related to your issue, and then when you zero in on what you want, then what you need to do to get the kids ready in preparation and planning is more apparent. So just begin to play with it and plug things in as they occur to you, and don't feel pressured to do that in order or to do it exactly correctly, because you're going to revise it a lot as you go through. Okay, so this is where I need to get a temperature check from everybody, because we've got 5 minutes, but the way I want to spend them is not for you to necessarily say again that we're wonderful. Tell us how you are.
Or that you were mistaken.
Yeah. But, tell us what clarification you need about where we're headed, or tell us about your comfort level, but just give us a one-liner about where you are with things. Jump in if you're ready.
I signed up today, so I haven't looked at anything yet except the flyer that came in the email. So I need to look.
Okay, that's great. And if you need help with anything in between sessions, you can email us that you'd have those questions. If you want to get on Zoom in advance of the next class, we can, or if it all falls into place, that's great. But thanks for telling us where you are with it. That's helpful.
I'm ready to keep working with Sarah on our grant. GAR grants are coming February. Yeah, about Zen garden, gardening, hydroponics. We're ready.
That's cool. And what would be helpful to us, if there is a format for filling out a GAR grant application, if you can share the link with us for that, then we know what questions you're supposed to answer, and that'll enable us to be more helpful.
One of the sample projects we have from this summer is a gardening project that's gone on at a middle school for a number of years, but they also collaborated with the, I don't know what he does design work with the kids and construction. So it could be something that like Chad Nash might be interested in doing, but there might be some good ideas and resources in that as well. So
send them that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Who else?
I'm actually, since I'm teaching a fairly new class now, and I pretty much have a clean slate, and I'm the only one who teaches it, and they don't have to know any certain amount of things until the next class. I'm actually really excited that I can pick something, do it, and nobody's going to be like, oh no, you didn't get to this part in your book.
That's good. Keep inventing courses. That'll pay off. That's good.
Well, and Irene too, don't forget that you got K on up who's willing to work with your high schoolers.
Yeah, actually, you guys mentioning that earlier and in talking again about that, the quilt and the high schoolers were there. I thought about that. I thought that would be really cool. I'm looking around at, the different age groups that you guys teach, and it would be really, really cool to try and come up with something that everybody can have a little part of. Yeah. I would love that. I would absolutely love that.
That'd be great.
It'll be so easy with like Google. Irene, you can just send out surveys and look at data and the statistics and things. Like, just reach out, whatever you need.
Well,
yeah, that's a great idea. I'm so excited. Thanks, you guys. You're going to actually help me teach my course. Thank you.
And start small too. You don't have to do the whole K-12. Pick maybe one teacher or two, just baby steps, and then you can always expand.
Yeah, thank you.
We're all so concerned with social emotional needs of kids right now. Any kind of intergenerational stuff is like gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We're all one-to-one too with devices now.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got, all of our kids have a Chromebook. So as far as like Google Meets with high schoolers, even though like we can't get together physically necessarily, we can connect them during the day.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. How about comfort level for everybody else? You all right?
I feel good.
Parting comment, Matt Hagedorn.
I'm just how I get every time we do these things. My brain is just in a billion different places trying to figure out what's going on and like what I want to do. And I think I wrote down like 17 possibilities, but then then I start thinking about my time and my classes, and my head hurts. And it's just, I'm at that beginning trying to figure out like something that I want to do that is going to be, something where I can, still get done what I want to do and do something meaningful. So I'm just kind of just picking my brain a little bit and trying to figure out where I want to go with it.
I'm sure you'll get there. Good. Debbie, you got what you got going on there, kid?
I'm pretty much at the same spot as Matt. I get a lot of ideas, and then with Sarah and I, supposed to be team teaching, hoping to be back in the same space next year. We kind of talked a little bit earlier about trying to come up with some ideas too that will be relevant and we can utilize in our class with our kids. And she and I are both very much alike as far as our things we like to do. And that gardening thing is, I've heard about her and John talking about that for a couple of years now. And so, I mean, just kind of so many things going through your mind about what to do.
All right. And don't get overwhelmed. I mean, this is exciting.
Right.
Don't let the excitement morph into stress. Promise me you don't let that happen. Matt Morrissey, what do you think?
I love the last thing you just said. There's a lot of new in my world right now. So I love having so many zillions of options, but I'm going to have to whittle it down.
Yeah.
I look forward to that process.
All right, good. Joanne, what do you think?
Same thing. My mind is swirling. I'm super excited though. I've always been super excited, but I could just never narrow it down. So many possibilities though. It's crazy.
Well, and that's, give yourself some time, and let some things fall off the board. And then when if you find yourself juggling 3, 4, 5 ideas and you want help, just letting us listen to you talk about the benefits of each thing. As we question and you talk, you'll hear yourselves and that'll lead you where you want to be.
I was just hoping something would fall into my lap and just magically be perfect.
It might. It still might.
One of the things we experienced this summer was because there was nobody knew whether they were going back to school or totally remote. I mean, you still don't, but you could see that the pressure was off of them because the goal was to develop a plan that anybody could pick up and do, whether they were in the class or not, and not necessarily, I mean, it should be something they were interested in, they could implement, but the goal was really to design the plan and have, lots of choices for people. Now, what happened was once they got their plan, then they wanted to do it. So, but they had everything. So that if you can sort of be at that level right now of let's do a plan that you're interested in and then worry about implementing it later.
Yeah. Brooke, Sarah, more you want to say?
I keep going back to what John said really early on today when he was talking about how, you come up with this idea and it can explode and the kids are, and, needing to rein them in. But then I think too, like that's like one of the bright spots in all of this that we're going through is that you have to rein in. And I know like I have to rein myself in sometimes, but just to be able to use that to our advantage, I think.
Yeah, sure.
So these meetings, I always feel, I was sharing with our, the breakout room that I'm really struggling this year because I am not a person that stands up and talks at kids and then expects them to remember what I say. I feel like I'm trying to do that this year and it goes against me.
Sure.
And I mean, not that there's not a place for that, but I just don't like it. And this is what I thought teaching was when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And then when I realized and learned that it isn't that all the time, that's why I decided this is what I want to do. And so these meetings are just reinforcing that in me. And then I look around at all these little tiles of like people who logged on who were just tired from their Tuesday. And then now everybody has a smile. Everybody, you can see everybody's like, all right, like, let's go, let's do it. And that to me is so meaningful. Just watching my colleagues get excited about why we're here, because we get so bogged down with the weight of the world. And this is it. Like, guys, this is why we're here. So that's I just love it.
Thumbs up.
That's why we do this work.
Yes, that is a perfect place to stop for today. Will help us all look forward to next week together. In the way that you told us that you feel really good about the two of us, I tell you, we feel the same way about y'all. So have a great week. And if you need something in between, let us know. All right.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Woo!